All right, guys, welcome to Coach the CEO Beyond the Workout podcast. I'm your host, Coach Chris Lingham. Today, I'm going to be bringing you guys 3 very impactful tips that are going to help you transform your gym, help you get to multiple 6 figures. These are some of the things that I had to learn the hard way, so I'm going to be telling you guys today, hopefully to make things a lot easier for you in the future. All right, so today's episode is called Why Most Gyms Stay Stuck at 10K or Less. And if you are able to do the math, you will know that that just puts you over 6 figures per year, right? So we're talking about how to make a gym that's multiple 6 figures. If you haven't crossed over that 6-figure mark, then today's going to be a very important episode because I'm going to be breaking down some of the things that you need to put in place that will actually get you there. All right. So without anything being any more jibber jabber, let me tell you a little bit more about my gym. I ran a small studio, and we at our height we had about 125 members. And when I think about like how many members a gym should have, I think that 125, 150 members is right around that sweet spot, right? And the problem that I've seen in the past is that I've seen a lot of gyms get to that area, but they don't make a lot of money in that with that amount of members, right? So it becomes like this gym is very hard to maintain. You're struggling, you're working a ton of hours, you're not really feeling like you're taking home the kind of money that you need. And there's a lot of reasons why that is happening, right? So today we're going to be breaking down some of those reasons and helping you get to a gym where 100 and 150 members actually feels easy to maintain, but you're also making a profit from it, right? So these are some of the problems that I had where I had a lot of members, and because I didn't have some of these things figured out early on, I was constantly going back and trying to fix them along the way to be able to make it that the amount of members that I had was actually, able to sustain me and my family, right? So the biggest mistake that I see is that we think that if we get more members, right, that we're going to be happier, right? So we're just always looking to figure out how to get the next customer. And that a lot of times just comes down to a lot of weird spammy promos. We're discounting offers and doing a lot of things just to get bodies in the door. But the problem with just getting bodies in the door is that it always doesn't equal profits. And sometimes when you're just using that mentality of bodies in the door, you're typically not attracting the right people. You're not attracting the people that are going to help you sustain a gym and build a culture, which is going to be important for you if you're looking to grow your gym to multiple 6 figures and make it profitable at the same time. All right, so today let's dive into those 3 key mistakes, right, that are keeping people under 10K, right? Or if you're at 10K, that's keeping people stuck at 10K. And number 1 on that list is going to be the hidden ceiling that stops most gyms from growing to multiple 6 figures per year. And what that is that the biggest mistake that I made early on was that thinking that my coaching skill was going to be the thing that helped me grow my gym and get a lot of members. Meaning, I thought that if I was just an authority in the fitness space, that if I was just really, really good at coaching and I had a ton of certifications, that members would just automatically knock on my door, that they would just come in and start doing business with me, right? Like, I'm like, hey, I got a NSCA CSCS, right? It's like, come train with me. And they have no idea what that certification is, right? But then we make the mistake of having kind of that imposter syndrome, right? So there's like there's this spot where it's like you have a certification, you're not growing the gym the way you want to, so you start thinking, well, maybe I'm not good enough, right? Maybe I don't have what it takes, so maybe I need to go out and learn some more. So then you start taking more certifications. So you keep investing in yourself, which is not a bad thing, guys. Like, I 100% believe in investing in yourself, which I think is a huge, important part. But investing in yourself is going to be different than like making your gym grow. So we have to understand that, yes, we want to invest in ourselves, but that's not going to necessarily carry over to that your gym is now more successful, right? I've seen people with, a random weekend certification, but they had a lot of great business skills and they were able to grow a gym and be very successful with their gym. And they didn't have a superior certification. So the biggest mistake is thinking, and that's a mindset thing when you really think about it, is not feeling like you're good enough as a coach and constantly feeling like you need to get this next certification. So you're getting nutrition certification and different specialist certifications, and you think that that's going to be the answer to you being able to cross this next threshold of income. And the reality is, it's going to make you a better coach. It's going to improve your experience, which are key parts of what we're trying to do here. But it doesn't always equal more dollars. Like when you get a nutrition certification from this company, it's not going to automatically make you, 10, 20K per year more unless you understand how to actually turn that certification into your advantage, right? So a good marketer, right, is going to be able to market the fact that they got this certification, and then a good business operator is going to create a new system, right, that's going to allow you to profit off of that certification. So early on, I didn't know how to take my continuing education and wrap it in a way that was going to be appealing to my avatar or the customers that I was trying to bring in, right? I didn't understand how to communicate that with them to be able to use that as a resource to be able to improve my income, right? The next thing is like the infrastructure, right? So the infrastructure in the business isn't set up right, and that is also going to make it that you hit this ceiling. So if you don't have processes, if you don't have systems in place, if your pricing is off, like these are going to be the things that really mess you up. And early on, this is kind of what I was talking about, where we had a lot of members, but our pricing structure was off, right? So the pricing structure was off. And what we did to grow that was we brought in members, and they were like, we were like, one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was like, I'm going to grandfather you in at your rate, right? Like the rate that you pay, I'll never raise your rate. Thank you for doing business. Like it was just like this way that I thought was going to equal like loyalty and retention, stronger retention. Like they were just like, I'll never leave you, Chris, because you're never charging me more money. But the only problem is that we only have a limited amount of space in our program, right? So if you only have a limited amount of space and you start to hit that cap, but you're not charging the right amount of money and you have members on different memberships, well, you're going to be basically taking away from your future salary, right? So one thing that we would do is we would increase our rates, right? We would increase our rates over time. And then what happened is we would start bringing in people. We would have certain members paying at a higher rate. We'd have certain members paying at a lower rate. And we started to hit this wall where we couldn't really fit anyone else in. And then those members that were paying at a lower rate, well, the biggest problem that you start having is you start resenting them, right? You start resenting them because you're not able to really make enough money to take care of the things in the gym. And if you could just charge them more money, it would actually make the gym more profitable. But you've made this promise to them to not raise their rates, and you're trying to stay loyal, but at the same time, you're breaking your gym. And like there's this part where like as a business owner, mentally, this can cause you to resent certain members and maybe not want to deliver that service, especially if you start having some issues culture-wise, or people in gyms, people tend to group together, and if you have a group that's like at a lower paying rate and they're not necessarily helping build that culture with new people that are coming in at a higher rate, well, now you're having more friction, right? So you have these cultural issues, and a lot of that has to do with the mindset of the people that you brought in at your lower rate are going to be different than the people that are paying at your higher rate in the future. So it's understanding that this is like a new customer that you're attracting, right? You're attracting someone that's paying maybe, $100 more per month, than somebody that was in the past. So that's going to be a big jump when it comes to mindset and like the mentality of that buyer. So it's really important that you don't make that mistake of saying, hey, you're grandfathered in, right? Like anything can change, right? And you should let people know, like, hey, if I ever raise your rate, we know like you're going to get more value with that. And I think that as we started to change that policy in our gym, we started to see a lot more success, right? So when I changed members' rate, I let them know that I was going to change it, but I also let them know I was going to bring more value for them. And I gave them a chance that if they wanted to leave, they could, right? And that's not always a bad thing, because now you're going to free up some space for somebody else to come in at that higher rate, and this is going to allow your gym to become more profitable, right? So it's understanding that like wiggle room of like your pricing, right? Another thing that slows you down and has you hit that ceiling is like your leadership skills and your systems, right? So when we think about systems and operation systems, you're going to have like to run a successful business. A lot of people, this is the problem that we run into with the fitness business, is that we don't often run it like a real business, right? So I've ran my gym for 13 years, and the problem that I had was about half of those years, I was trying to figure out how to run a business, right? I would say the back end, I actually learned the ins and outs of business, and I would say the more you grow, the more books you read, the more courses you take, you can learn these skills and become a lot better at business. But early on, if you're running your business, your fitness business, not like a traditional business, you're going to run into some problems, right? In traditional businesses, right, they have systems and processes for every element of the business, right? So you have marketing systems, you have fulfillment systems, you have sales systems, right? You have onboarding systems, you have retention systems, you have internal marketing. There's all these systems that you need to have in place to allow your business to actually run like a business. And so let's break that down. Like, what's a marketing system, right? Because a lot of people think that a marketing system is just like, hey, I throw some ads up on Facebook and members come into my gym. That's my marketing system. Well, that was a mistake that I made, right? I didn't realize that, hey, like there's a bigger ecosystem that goes together to complete a marketing system. Number one is like, what's your marketing plan? What's your marketing strategy? Who's your avatar? What's your message, right? What are the different mediums that you're going to use to advertise your business, right? So those mediums might be, hey, you use email marketing, you use social media, right? Paid ads, social media posting. They all fit together in an overall scheme of a marketing system, right? So it's not just one thing. It's not that we just run a paid ad to a landing page and then that's our marketing system. Are we running a campaign, right? Do we have, how many ads are we running? What happens when they click on the ad and they opt in? Do we have a follow-up system, right? Or when they opt in, are we sending them emails, right? So we want to think about our marketing as a strategy. We want to have a target audience that we're trying to hit. And then we also want to have systems that revolve around that advertisement. And this is going to be one of the keys to making sure that you're not wasting your money, right? A lot of people are afraid to market or do paid marketing because they don't want to waste their money, right? So it's important that as a business, we understand how to market and also how to understand the monetary side of things, meaning how much money are you spending on your ads? What does it cost to acquire someone, a new lead into your gym? And what does it cost to sign them up, right? So when we start to understand some of those things, it makes it a lot easier and more predictable to grow your gym. So there was like this period where before I started running my business as a gym, or running my gym as a business, there was no predictability, so there was no real growth strategy, right? But once you start learning one system at a time, you start to be able to predict a little bit more growth, and that's when you actually start to feel some freedom in what it is that you're doing, right? So like we just said, there's pricing, there's leadership, and there's systems. So part of your leadership is learning and evolving as a business owner so that as you start to grow your business, you actually are starting to turn it into more of a well-oiled machine, right? Early on as a coach, we don't want to do that because we take pride in the fact that it feels very homey, it's kind of kitschy, it's not all the way, it's almost like if you become a business, you're a sellout, right? And I think that we have to improve our mindset around that, and that is a lot to do with our leadership and our growth, right? The more you become a leader and you start to step out of the role as being that coach all the time, you're going to understand that I need to set these things up in my business properly. Especially, we just talked about it, if you're stepping off the floor, one system that you're going to need in place is how do you bring in your coaches, right? How do you train them? This is something that I struggled with a long time, and I would say that we always were really good at training our coaches, but the style and the method that I did it always changed. So there wasn't a lot of consistency, and we were always doing this trial and error. Let's give this a shot for a while, see how this works. And then oh my God, that's so complicated. Let's try and simple it down, right? So over time, I've had to learn, what should we do with a coach, right? So as I started to build out my 90-day launch system for gym owners, right, I started to really think about like what's a process that we can take a coach through in 90 days to make sure that they're a rock star coach, right? Like what are the things that they need to do in their first 30 days? And I started to look back and be like, this was the things that we did every time with our coaches in the first 30 days, the ones that were actually like really successful. We hit all of these little checkpoints along the way. Right? So I started to map it out. Like this is what we did. Like the first week they didn't coach, they just kind of helped, they just watched things, they kind of shadowed, right? Then the week 2, I had them like get their hands dirty, like coach a couple people up on some certain exercises, right? Then week 3, it was like, hey, I need you to lead this part of the workout for me, right? And then like week 4, I need you to lead the start of the workout and kind of just like, and then by the end of that, we're going to have you run a full workout, right? So that in month 2, now they're actually on the job training and they're leading training sessions, and now you're evaluating, you're shadowing them. And then by month 3, right there, now you're trying to like evaluate different aspects of their coaching, right? And give them that like that last final touch points and evaluation and guidance to be able to help them take that next step, which is going to allow them to coach without you micromanaging or sitting over their shoulder, right? So if you see that we laid that path out for them so that it stays the same each time, and that they're super successful in that process, right? So that is another idea or another concept of a system within a fitness business, and it's important that we're systemizing our gym or we never really get out of it, right? So without those, you're always going to be earning just enough, and it's never going to be enough to make it to multiple 6 figures, right? If you don't have good operating systems for your coaches, if you don't have good marketing systems, and then one that I didn't even mention was like sales systems, right? Like I think that sales is going to be the most important thing. Now, as a business owner, when you step off the floor, you're most likely going to be focusing on the sales side of things. And I say that because it's a higher value job in your gym. When you look at all the people that work in your gym, you're going to be like, okay, well, who here should be doing the selling? Now, I've done it a lot of different ways. I've had coaches sell in the past, and it worked out really well, right? We made it competitive. I would give bonuses and rewards and prizes for my coaches that hit more sales. But, sometimes we hand off things because we don't really feel like doing it. And if you really want to make more money and keep more of the money in the business, you're not going to really want your coaches like missing sales. Plus, it's going to mess up with their mindset. They're going to feel bad if they like blew it for the gym. So like take on that role, and that's part of leadership, right? Hand off the things that like you still may be really good at, right? You're probably the best coach in your gym, right? But like at the end of the day, the best coach in the gym should be training all the other coaches to be just as good as them, right? And then your job should be focusing more on like, hey, let's sell, let's bring members in. Let's make sure I'm feeding the team, right, members so that they can do their job, right? So you have to do your job. So you have to step up as a leader to do your job so that they can also do their job. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts in leadership that I had to learn, which was, knowing which things to delegate and to hand off to other people so that they could fill in and do their job and that they could leave feeling happy, right? Because this is the reason why we pay them. We pay them so that they can be successful at the things that they're good at, and then we do the things that we're good at, right? So we need to focus on our sales and our marketing. They need to handle all the fulfillment and the coaching and the client satisfaction, right? So number 2 on this list, the 3 silent gym killers, right? The 3 silent gym killers. So number 1 on that, out of the 3 we talked about, was the pricing, right? So when we think about pricing, most gyms undercharge out of fear of leaving no margin to hire, and this leaves no margin to hire your staff, upgrade your equipment, right? Or invest in your marketing. So a lot of times it's hard to market to go get new members because we don't have enough money left over, right? So it's important that your members that you have, you're charging at the right amount. And what I usually will look at is like lifetime value of a client, right? So not only how much are they paying per month, but how long do you keep that member, right? And then in that time, how much do they pay, right? Also, do you have any other services or products that you cross-sell or upsell, coaching programs that you put them into? Do you upgrade them? Do you take that client and help make them worth more to your business, right? So we want to think about like our pricing structure of what it is that they pay, but then also having our business built out that allows that customer to be worth more towards our business over the year, right? So let me give you an example. A typical member in team training might be charged $199 per month, and if they stay for a year, that's $2,400 per month. Well, in that year, do I do anything in my gym that helps increase that lifetime value, right? Do we run internal challenges that they can sign up for? Maybe it's $100 or $200 that they can pay to be able to join a challenge where we help focus them on reaching their goals faster. Well, that might be, now we've taken $2,400 in a year, we've turned it into $26,000, right? Do you sell any apparel? Do you sell any supplements to them? Because maybe if they're on a subscription for supplements and maybe your profit that you're getting kicked back is like $99 a month for that client, well, then that's going to add another additional $1,200 per year for that client. So now we were at $2,600 per year, and then now we've just increased that to $3,800 per year by having them on a supplement subscription, right? Now they can come off of that subscription. They might not be on there for 12 months, but I want you to think about it that way, right? Do you have nutrition coaching that you can upgrade them into, right? Maybe you can bolt that on, because you can literally take someone who is a $199 client, $2,400 per year, and turn them into a $4,000 per year client by having the right infrastructure set up in your business, right? So when you're able to take your customer and help them become more valuable to your business, this gives you more income, more profit to be able to now use in your marketing to be able to attract more members, and then you keep repeating that process, right? So that should be a system that's kind of built into your business. Like, how do you upsell people? How do you cross-sell people? How do you get them to stay longer? Maybe renewal, right? So we talked about $2,400 in a year. Well, how long do they stay? Do they just stay for the year, or do they stay for 2 years? Do they stay for 3 years, right? So we start to make that customer worth more towards your business, right? The next thing, like we said, is your systems. If your entire operation depends on you showing up 60 hours per week, right? You don't have a business, you got a job, and the job probably doesn't pay that well. And you're probably not doing that good because you're tired and you're worn out and you're probably irritable and you're not good to be around, right? So you actually do yourself and the business a favor by not working so much, right? By having a team who's splitting up those sessions so that there's quality, right? Because you'll notice that you will drop the ball. If you're working all the sessions, you're dropping the ball with your retention, right? So you're losing money on the back end thinking that you're saving money on the front end. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is that they don't offload the coaching. They don't find someone who can do a good enough job, right? Because they think that the clients are only going to stay if they're doing awesome and they're the best trainer in the world, but that's not true, right? We just talked about that earlier. The reality is, if you have good retention systems in place, that's what's going to keep them, right? What actually gets people to stay? Getting results, right? If a client is training with you for 6 months and they lose 6 pounds in 6 months, they're probably not likely to stay with you because they're not reaching their goals. They're not successful. They're going to go look around for something else that's going to help them reach their goal. On the other side, what if in 6 months, they're down 10, 20 pounds and they've put on lean muscle? Well, they're really happy with their experience. They're getting results. They want to stick around. They want to see how far they can take this thing. So by having good retention systems in place, they're going to help hold your clients accountable, right? And by having good programming in place, right? The operations are well oiled. You're helping them outside the gym with their habits. These are going to be the things that help them stay longer and get results. And then they're going to also refer their friends, which is also going to increase your bottom line. It's going to increase that revenue to the gym, right? So we talked about your pricing, right? Your lifetime value of your clients. Your systems need to be on point, right? So you can't be doing everything, right? It's also nice to have an accountability coach, to have some coaches that run the training, right? And then maybe you're doing a lot of the emails and staying in touch with them, right? So helping run this thing as an operation where there's a team is going to be super successful. It's going to help you become super successful, and it's going to make it that much easier for you to actually reach the spot that you want to be. Because if you're burned out, if you're training too much, you're probably not growing your gym because you're not doing the work outside of the gym that actually helps it move forward, right? And then retention was that last part, right? So bringing in 20 new members means nothing if you're losing 10 in the same month, right? And this was the problem that we used to have, right? When we didn't have good retention systems, and we were just we're relying on energy, right? The energy is great. Everyone feels awesome, so everyone's going to stay. No, you need to have retention systems in place that are going to keep people where they're at to be able to get them results. You need to be checking in on them, making sure that they're not going anywhere, that they haven't fallen off In future episodes, we'll talk all about retention and different systems that you can use, and just kind of some of the indicators when somebody might be on their way out of the gym, right? So you got to have retention systems. So it's pricing, your systems, and your retention, right? So that's going to be your 3 silent gym killers. These are going to be the things that really hold you back from growth. And if you're not paying attention to those, then you need to start paying attention to those, because once you do, you're going to find that everything gets that much easier in running your fitness business. All right, so number 3, and our last one that's keeping people stuck at 10K or less, is what successful gyms do differently before they break the multiple 6 figures per year, right? And this is probably the biggest one. This is like the moment that everything kind of changed for me, was that I stopped selling sessions and packages, right? So when I first signed up with like MindBody to sell stuff to my training clients, you go through your onboarding and the person's like, okay, you can set up a 12 session package, right? And you can do a monthly, and because you start looking around, like, what's everyone else charging? Oh, okay, this gym or this yoga studio down the street, they're doing like a 12 class pass package. I'm going to do the same thing. And the problem is that we don't look at, the numbers, number one, right? So we don't know, hey, how much money are they making per year? Are they making the amount of money that you want to make? If they're not, you probably don't want to follow their model, right? You probably don't want to copy someone that you don't know that is actually successful. Number 2, when they sell those packages, do the clients actually use them, right? And then number 3, do they renew after they use them? And then I would say even number 4, how long does it take someone to actually use all those sessions, right? So this is why I hate selling session packages, because if I sell you 12 session packages or a 12 session package, you can take like 90 days to use those 12 sessions, right? There's no accountability that's associated with that. So a person doesn't care, right? They might do 3 sessions this week and then miss the gym the next week. And then, then they got a week that they're going to go away, and you're like, well, I want to save up some of my sessions. And then and what ends up happening is that they don't actually take the gym serious, right? There's no built-in accountability for them to stay on track and to be on point with their program. And when you think about it as a lot of times, don't get me wrong, I love having the unlimited option for my training. But if you have unlimited and it's cheap, you run into the problem of people just lumping you in with large group fitness classes. And you don't want to be in that, because when you get thrown into large group fitness classes and boot camp category, what ends up happening in your gym is that people don't see your gym as anything special or unique. They don't see it as a program. They just kind of see it as a class. And then they start to associate the value of what you're bringing towards other class options. So it starts being well, Josie's gym down the street sells classes for $10. This gym does 12 and this gym's at 15. Why should I be paying $20 or $30 per session with you if I only have to pay, $10 a class at this gym over here? So now you're arguing over your value, and the person is questioning your value. And the reality is that you need to make sure that there's no question when it comes to your value, because the way that you've set your business up, you deliver an absurd amount of value that's really hard for other people to copy, right? And this was one of the most successful things that I did, was looking at my gym and making sure that I put it together, and I put together my offers in a way that was impossible for the competition to be able to duplicate or copy, right? So it wasn't that I just gave you access to workouts. It was that I gave you workouts plus this, plus that, plus this, plus this, and that. And then I'm going to do that all at this certain price per month, right? And that price per month is going to allow you to have this level of access to the gym and to our coaching staff. So really what I'm saying is that we started looking at it selling a transformation package or a transformation program instead of just sessions or class packages, right? And once you start doing that, you're pricing your service based on value and not based on access, right? And when you start putting it on value, now it becomes in the eye of the beholder, right? If that customer believes that you're selling a more value than this person, then they're going to pay more for your service, because they understand, right? And this is part of your marketing, is that you got to market this. And when you're in the sales process, right, talk about those systems, right? when your marketing system and your sales system can clearly articulate that you're selling value, that you're selling a package and it's an offer, that it's different than anyone else, and you're going to experience something that's different than everyone else, they're not going to be able to put you in a category with other people. So you become in a category of your own, which means that there's no limitation on what you can charge. You can charge up until what that person's willing to pay. So this is going to allow you to, over time, see how much more you can get for your training, right? So earlier I said I charged $199 per month for our lowest tier of training. So people knew in the marketplace that the barrier to entry into our gym was $200, right? Yes, are some people going to call you expensive? Great, you should be known as the expensive gym. And I would always use the line during my sale that it's hard to be the most expensive and the best at the same time. So we focus on being the best, and our members end up getting the value because of that, right? That's enough sometimes to push someone over the edge and be like, well, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. Let me do this trial that you're offering, because I've never heard someone talk about their program in that way, right? So I'm betting on my program. I'm not going to say, as soon as they say, oh, you're expensive, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, let me charge you $50 off per month as a discount, right? We're like, no, we're going to double down. Yes, in fact, we are expensive, and here's why we're expensive, right? Because we're not offering a cheap product. If you would like a cheap product, then we can go and we can actually pull up Google Maps and we'll find a gym that works better for you based on the budget that you would like to pay. But if you're actually looking for service and results and actual customer experience and culture, then I recommend that maybe you pay a little bit more for that, because that's what we're offering. And when you do that and you kind of actually are like, it's almost like the person's just like trying to see if they can get over on you and like get that price down. And when you double down on it, right, it's just like, they're like, wow. Yeah, all right, you know what? I like what you're saying, right? They actually enjoy the fact that you have that part of you in you that's like, hey, like, no, we're not going to discount that, right? So the next part is that they install systems for their sales fulfillment, their client management, and their business runs even when the owner takes a day off, right? So when you're like, when I started to, have a kid and all these things, I had to really step away from the gym, right? And had other responsibilities. So my gym needed to run, and a lot of times I couldn't be there in the morning. So morning we open up, the gym should run a certain way. Our coaches should be running things. We should be like still sending out emails. We should still be posting on social media, right? All of these systems should be running on a regular basis to be able to help your gym grow. And once you're not running those things like when you start, I should say, run it like a well-oiled machine, you're going to see that like the growth starts to feel like a machine. Like you can actually start to see it checking up each month, boom, 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 and it climbs. And it's easier to put people into your gym because it's running on systems. People are really happy. They're satisfied with the product that you're giving them. And like that's really what the key is here. And then I would say the last part on this is that they obsess over their retention, right? They obsess over the retention. Retention isn't just about, hey, did the members stay this month? It's actually it's actually engineering that a member does stay by looking at different elements of why would someone stay in your gym, and then almost like making sure that those things happen, right? So I obsess over this. So one of the things that kept our retention up super high was that I wanted, and this was in our staff trainings, we would always talk about the experience, right? That like coming to our gym should feel like a rock concert, right? That people should be blown away. That when someone leaves the gym and leaves a workout, they should be like, what the hell was that? Like, because I remember doing a gym with Martin Rooney at it was at Vigor Ground Summit in Las Vegas, and I remember walking out of that workout and I was just like, what the hell was that? Like that was different, right? It was so much energy, people were high-fiving, and I started to understand and learn a lot. Like my time, and a lot of my time with my gym, I was a training for Warriors gym, and I really enjoyed what they did and what Martin really kind of configured when it came to really paying attention to the culture, right? And making sure that people had an experience. And that was one of the reasons why people stayed in our gym, was because we focused on creating an absurd experience for people where like they just loved the training and wanted to be able to continue to do that, to keep coming, to keep having a great experience. The next is like your culture, how people are they nice? Do they take care of each other? Do they high five each other? Do they say hey? Do they meet up outside of the gym? Like, what kind of culture do you have is going to really make it that members stay longer, right? When new members come, do they feel like they're being accepted into the family, or do they feel like they're being like ostracized and babies being put into the corner, right? You want to make sure that people are feeling good, that they feel comfortable. You got swag, you got some stuff on the wall, you got some chalkboards that you guys put up. We had leaderboards in our gym. All of these things led to retention, to having people stay longer, to making sure that they felt like they're part of a family, part of a community, and they're part of a bigger impact, right? So there you go, guys. Those are my 3 things today that are keeping most gyms stuck at 10K or less. And hopefully if you start to implement some of these things, you're going to see a lot of progress in your gym. You're going to be able to get it to multiple 6 figures. And those of you guys that would like a little bit more help, I've actually put together a resource that I'm going to put in the actual description of this video. It's the 7 biggest mistakes that gym owners make and how to fix them before you burn out. All you got to do is opt in your email. You'll get that. And then those of you guys that are looking to grow your gym to multiple 6 figures, to have some of those systems that I talked about, right, implemented into your business, I recommend that you check out our 90-day launch system. This is our program that we run. It's a mentorship, 90 days, plus you get to license our entire team training system, plus all of the other systems that we use in our gym, coming from our operations, our sales, our marketing, our client retention, things like our 90-day client journey, one that be able to take someone that comes in off of a new a new program that you're marketing and help them get through their first 90 days is what we consider the sticking point. Once you get someone past 90 days, they usually stay for a year. But a lot of people usually lose their member within the first 90 days, so they're not able to actually get that person to stay longer and pay longer, right? I'll talk about how we use our marketing campaigns internally to be able to grow our lifetime value of a customer, right? To be able to take them from being a team training member to a small group member, to being able to take them to a nutrition client and being able to have them do all these upsells and cross sells, right? This is what we do. This is how we teach inside of our Impact Fitness Business Mentorship. So if you're looking to get some help, download that resource. And in there, I'm probably sure that you'll hear and get to learn a little bit more about the Impact Launch System plus the 12-month license. Thank you guys for tuning in to Coach to CEO Beyond the Workout. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode and being able to help you grow as a coach, to grow as a leader, and most importantly, to grow your gym to multiple 6 figures and beyond.